off the wind. Lucky 7 every time I walk in. You know? Every time I walk in, I'm the best thing. I'm the best thing. They all watching. Every time we walk in, we the best thing. We the best thing.
Hello. Hi guys, thanks so much for joining today. My name is Zeina El-Sherif and I'm a field education trainer with the Wella company. And today I'm going to be doing a demo for you guys on Wella's new trend movement, Illuminage. And this technique was created by Romu Felipe, who is one of Wella's global ambassadors. And I love this technique because it is a hand painting technique. And it's going to give us really natural, seamless transitions. It's going to really accentuate areas of the head, and it's going to give a really nice face frame and a beautiful perimeter. And we're going to get a multi-dimensional look with this too. So before we get started, if you guys have any questions, make sure to throw them in the chat or in the question cards. Unfortunately, Nichelle couldn't be here with me today, so I know she'll be joining the live and she'll be able to answer some questions for me in the chat in case I miss any of them. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my mannequin over here. All right, so I just wanna go over the sectioning pattern for this technique. So I'm gonna bring up a head sheet here. So this is our main sectioning for this technique. And I love this sectioning pattern because it's a really quick, easy kind of guide on where to start, especially if you don't know where to start your hand painting or kind of where to go. This is a really great pattern because it kind of sections out those key areas of the head. I love your hair. Thank you. I just did it last week, so I'm excited that I don't have any roots. Okay, so the first thing I did with this sectioning pattern was I sectioned out that big diamond part on the top of the head. So I just kind of went about 1 inch past her hairline here and I sectioned out that diamond. And then the next thing I did after that was I just went from that point of the diamond on the side there and I went straight down, and that sections out the front and the perimeter. Okay, and then the last thing was I just sectioned out the back in 2 sections. So pretty straightforward. It's great because it kind of sections out those big areas. Like that diamond is a huge, it's the entire top. So it's going to be a huge part of this technique. So, all right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to start in the back. So I'm going to bring up the back section for you guys so you guys can see. So not looking at that diamond part, we have those 2 sections in the back, and that's kind of where I'm going to start here. So it's pretty simple. You just go straight across, and then we're going to be doing some zigzag sections. So I'm going to show you guys on my mannequin. Here we go. Let me lower that so you guys can see. That's probably much better. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start in the back here. I'm just going to do this one side because the other side's going to be exactly the same. So, oops, she's coming off. All right, so in the nape here, I'm going to start by doing a horizontal section. And I'm going to clip this away. Love Illuminage. Such an awesome process. Oh my gosh, me too. Yeah, I love it. I always love a painting technique too. So, okay, so I've taken a horizontal section and now I'm just going to zigzag within that section. And I'm going to take this piece, and this is the piece that we are going to lighten. So, just going to take a bit of my lightener here. And I like to make sure my piece is nice and tight and that I have lots of control over my section. And I'm just going to kind of start to paint through there. And I'm kind of just using the peaks of the zigzag for my high points. So I'm just packing on my product here. And I'm using Blondor Free Lights for my lightener. And Blondor Free Lights is our clay lightener in Wella. It is one of my favorite lighteners. Okay, so now that we've packed that on, I'm just going to take my paddle And I'm gonna saturate those ends here. And I like to flip her over and just make sure she's really saturated and just blend that up. Okay, so that is our first section there. Still in lockdown. This so makes me want to get back into the salon. Ugh, that sucks that you guys are still in lockdown. Salons, I'm in Calgary and salons opened here probably like a month ago. But you know, there's lots of restrictions here still. Terry, I think you're in the UK. Okay, so I've taken my next horizontal section, and again, we are going to zigzag this section, and giving her a zigzag is just going to give us more of a blend. It's gonna give us an even softer transition. And if you guys want an even softer transition than just zigzagging, you can even give her a bit of a back comb if you like. So you can softly back comb her here. And then when you back comb her, it almost makes those points of the zigzag a bit more visible, right? So there I've back combed her. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but it really accentuates those peaks of that zigzag. So I'm going to take my lightener. Oh, there's Nichelle. She's in the chat now. And I'm just going to paint those points that zigzag gave me. Ah. All right, so again, I'm using Blonder Free Lights. The mixing ratio to Blonder Free Lights is 1:1 to 1:3. My preferred mixing ratio is 1:1. I like a bit of a thicker product when I paint. But if you've never tried Blonder Free Lights before, I'd say the go-to mixing ratio is 1 to 1.5, so I would give that a go. Love this technique. Me too. All right, so I'm taking my paddle now and I'm just saturating those ends now. And I'm gonna give her a little flip. Make sure she's saturated on both sides. I like to saturate both sides for this technique. All right. Love 1 to 1.5. Yes, I think most people are a 1 to 1.5er. Okay, so I'm gonna take my next section here. I'm just gonna go straight across. And I find when I'm painting with a clay lightener, you can take sections a lot thicker than you would in a foil. So my section's pretty thick. And again, I'm going to zigzag this section here to give me more of that seamless blend. And you guys can back comb this or you can not back comb this. I actually prefer not to back comb, but that's just my personal preference. So, but I just wanted to show you guys a back combed piece. So I'm going to take my piece, make sure it is nice and tight. I like to over direct a little bit just so that this area is a bit more exposed so I can kind of get in and see a bit better. So I like to over direct her just into the center a little bit just so I can really paint this side here. I like to really pack on my product here, make sure she's really saturated. And then once this part is in, I'll over direct her a bit more to the side so I can reach the other side of that section and pack on product on that other side. So she's nice and saturated. Okay, so this hair that I've left out here, that's gonna give us some added dimension and some more like, kind of like some low lights in there. You could either like put color on that if you wanted to give her like a low light, or you could just leave that natural depending on what she has already. When we get into that diamond part, I'm gonna show you guys what I would do to, if she wanted to do a low light, but you could do that everywhere. So now that this is all packed on here, I'm going to take my paddle and lay that underneath. And I'm gonna really pack that on the ends too. And I like to give her a flip just to hit both sides of that section. All right, and then this is our last piece. So with our last piece, we're just going to, again, do a zigzag. Give us that seamless blend, and you can kind of see the zigzag underneath. And then I'm just gonna make sure my tension is nice and tight. And again, I like to over direct this section to the center, so I have more control and I can kind of see that area a bit more, and I can easily pack my product on for the side here. And then once this is all packed on there, I like to kind of just don't lose control of her section, but I like to kind of over direct her a bit more back to that side, just so I can now hit this side of the hair. What volume did you use with? Oh, that's a great question. I'm sorry that I didn't say that yet. So I have mixed my free lights with the 40 volume developer. So free lights has 3 designated developers that are designed to work with Blondor free lights. When we use the Blondor free lights developer, the technology for the clay is activated, and then that's how we don't get any bleeding or any swelling with this product. So we have 3 designated developers. We have a 20 vol, a 30 vol, and a 40 vol. And I like to think of these developers, rather than 20, 30, 40, I like to think of 20 vol as moderate lift, 30 vol as extra lift, and 40 vol as maximum lift. It's a bit different than if we were to use a 40 volume with, you know, like multi-blonde powder in a foil. So it's okay to use 40 vol in this situation, just because that nature of the nature of the paint, right? It's going to be a slower lift. All right, so that's the back. I would have gone to if I was working both sides, I'd probably do each side at the same time, just because I like to make sure everything's kind of out of my way. But I'm just going to do one side for the sake of the live. All right, so after the back, we are going to move on to the side of the head, and I just brought up a head sheet here so you guys can see. So this is what we're going to do with the side here. We are going to kind of go into these sides and just do diagonal sections. And we're going to go straight across into that hairline, into that perimeter. So, oops, trying to bring that back down. Oh no, it's stuck. There we go. Now you guys can see. Okay, so now when I'm going into the side, I'm going to take a diagonal section just like this, and we're gonna paint that entire side. So there isn't gonna be any zigzagging here. We're gonna paint this whole section. I'm loving this technique because it is a super quick application and a really easy sectioning pattern. I kind of like how everything's kind of sectioned out. It just gives a really easy map for us to know where to go. All right, so I'm going to elevate my section just a little bit, and I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to start painting in those mids. And I'm going to sweep that just into the hairline here because I want her to have some brightness around her face. Okay, so I'm going to paint both sides here. And when I'm painting, I like to be super generous with my product. I like to really pack it on and saturate these sections. And I'm not saturating through the hair. I'm still surface painting, but we want to make sure we can't see any of the hair underneath, right? So we want to really saturate it like that. And that's what's going to give us maximum lift when we're painting as well. All right, so now that I have painted this whole piece, you can also kind of over direct her like this and paint underneath if you want to. So if I'm gonna kind of on an awkward angle here, let me turn her like this so that you guys can see. So if I'm gonna do that, I'm just going to paint underneath my section like this just to give her some brightness through there. And I like to over direct her so I can get as much control of this section as possible. If you guys haven't tried this brush, I love this angled brush. For this part, I'm really using like the flat side of the brush to pack on as much product as possible. And then when I'm going in through here and giving her those details, I'm using like the tip of the brush. So it's kind of cool because you get a lot of variance with this brush. Okay, so now that I painted underneath, I'm gonna kind of bring her back like this. Haven't lost control of my section, so I just kind of like shimmied her back. And I'm gonna take my paddle and set that underneath and really paint those ends and give her a little flip and paint those ends underneath too. So she's gonna have lots of brightness around her face since we painted both sides of that section. All right, so there's that one side in the front. So we're going to follow that diagonal and take another big piece, clip that away. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. So I'm going to make sure this is nice and tight, that I have a lot of control over my section here. If this falls out, just let it fall because those are short pieces anyway, so. All right, so again, I'm gonna make sure I have lots of tension. I'm over directing back, and I'm just going to start to unload my brush in the middle here. And I like to unload in the middle because this is gonna get rid of a lot of product, so I'm not kind of blobbing it where I want those finer details. And then that's when I like to sweep up to give her those finer details. So you're not blobbing a lot of product where you need softer detail. Okay, so I'm just gonna sweep that product over. And we can see how saturated that section is. You can't see through the hair at all. You wanna make sure it's nice and white. Okay, so again, I'm gonna grab the other side of that strand and not lose control of my section, but I'm kind of still making sure she's nice and tight when I pull her this way so that I can paint underneath. Because if this hair starts to buckle, we're gonna lose control over our section, and that's where we're gonna start to get spotting. So it's really important that this hair underneath remains nice and tight. It's okay that this part is buckling, we want this to be nice and tight. So now that she's nice and tight there, I'm going to just give her those soft details with the tip of my brush. Gonna unload some of that product. Can you guys see that here? I'm gonna move her this way, there we go. Beautiful saturation, thanks Michelle. I love to saturate. Okay, so that's nice and packed on there, right? We cannot see through any of the hair. Okay, so now that that's packed on, I am going to pull her back again. Okay. See if anything's buckling, I just kind of readjust. I kind of just move her around and readjust that section to regain control over those buckles. And then I'm gonna grab my paddle, lay that hair down, and saturate those ends here. Flip her over and make sure both sides are nice and saturated. If only we could do this to ourselves. Oh, I know, right? I don't think I'm brave enough. Okay, all right. I'm gonna take this section in two, just because that's a little bit big for me. So I'm gonna separate this. Okay, so this piece here, again, I'm gonna pull this back, so I like to comb her away to get control over this section. And when you comb her back like that, you can really see where you wanna paint. Like you can really see those areas that are just calling for a paint. Okay, so I'm going to unload my brush in that middle there. Pack that product through those mids. And then I'm going to sweep up into that hairline. So saturation is definitely key to a lift when using a clay lightener. We definitely want to make sure we are saturating. Okay, and then again, I'm gonna over direct this piece, and you can see that that's a nice and tight piece here. Nothing's buckling. So I'm just going to apply product through there and really saturate this part. So this is a great technique for someone who wants maximum impact with the paint, who you think will lift enough with the paint too. So there we go. Okay, I'm gonna pull her back like this. Okay, so if this starts to buckle like this, like you can start to see hair through here, that's okay. Trust where you painted. Don't start to try to go in to like paint those areas, because those are all like underneath in between those sections. So like don't get weirded out by that. Just paint these ends and like trust where you painted and trust that you had a nice tight section when you were doing it. I wouldn't start to go in and try to like mess with that, because we've already had it nice and tight when we were doing it. All right, and then the last piece is this front money piece here. So I'm gonna take this piece and I'm gonna direct her away from her face. Make sure my tension is really tight, that I have lots of control over this section. And I'm just going to unload through those mids and sweep up into that hairline. So this is the Illuminage technique. This is our free painting technique with a clay lightener. I know you guys, if you haven't already, we've done Brazilian Illuminage, which is a foiling technique to create a balayage. So if you guys haven't watched that already, go back into our IGTV and have a look at that too. It's really nice to have the two different techniques, whether you want to paint somebody or put them in foil. And I'm going to take my paddle and I'm going to saturate her ends here. Okay, so that's the front. So that really gets the money piece, the side and the back fairly quickly. So if I was doing the entire head, I would have done the back side to side, and then I would have done one side and moved to the other. But I'm gonna show you that diamond section now. So this is what that diamond section looks like. So we're gonna still zigzag and we're gonna just move all along the top. And what I love about this is a huge part of the head. So this is a huge section and we're gonna get that big section done real quick too. So let me just tilt her back. Okay, so I'm gonna section this out, and I like to split this diamond into two, and I like to work side to side when I'm doing this as well. And I'm going to clip this part away so that it's not in our way. Okay. All right, so we have one part of this diamond section here, and we are just going to go straight across here. And there's a big section of hair there. And hopefully you guys can see that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to zigzag this section. There's my zigzag. And instead of just leaving this, I'm gonna show you guys, if you wanted to add a low light here, if you wanted to add another tone, this is, you can just like you would, just color. So I'm using, for my color right now, I'm using Illuminate 8-stroke 05, just because I love that rosy tone. And I'm just gonna paint those ends here too. And with color, I always try to saturate kind of everywhere, because I like to have a really saturated end result. So I kind of use my paddle all over and just make sure that's nice and saturated. Okay, so with free lights, we don't typically need to use separators. If you guys want to, if you guys are gonna use color, you could totally use some poly wrap, or you can use some foil to just separate that if you wanted to. And then the top here, what volume did you use with 805? I used 10 ball. Yeah, I just used a 10 ball. Okay, so now with this piece here, I'm gonna take my paint and we are going to again, just kind of paint those high peaks of those zigzags. Love adding a low light for added dimension to this look too. So I have a finished mannequin for you guys that I'll show you afterwards so you can see what this finished technique looks like. And on my finished mannequin, I actually did my low light through the entire head. So anything left out, I just put my low light through there. Just to give her more dimension. And another tone. Okay, so the next piece is going to be horizontal section. And the reason this moves so quickly is because you're taking pretty big sections. For a paint, you don't want your sections to be too thin, or else I find it's a lot easier to get spotting, and it's a bit harder to blend everything. So I do like to take pretty big sections. And then again, I'm going to zigzag that. There's our zigzag. Oh, let me just actually take that a bit thicker. Okay, so there's our zigzag. This piece, we are going to put our low light in there. So I'm going to put my paddle under there. And this is the 8-stroke 05 with Illumina with 10 volume. And I'm just going to paint that in there to give her some more dimension. Because who doesn't want dimension? There we go. And you can just lay that just like that. All right, and then this piece here. So I like a pretty thick piece because again, it just gives you more control over spotting and your blends. If you can see through your section, it's a lot easier for your product to fall through your section too. So I like to keep my section thick enough where I can't see through it. Hi, Nick. So I'm just gonna unload my brush in those mids there, paint up into those high points of that zigzag. And that zigzag's just gonna give us a more seamless blend and a softer transition. Okay, so now that that's nice and painted, I'm going to take my paddle and place that underneath, and I'm gonna really saturate those ends on both sides. And blend that up. There we go. All right, so it's like we're almost done. Do you guys see how quick this sectioning pattern can be? It's a really easy technique too. Okay, so let's take, oops, parting is so strong. Okay, I'm gonna clip that away. And I'm gonna take a zigzag. Oh, this is a pretty thin piece, so I think I'm just gonna take this entire section, or else the last piece is gonna be too thin. And we don't want the hair to be too thin for a paint, or else, again, our product can fall right through. So I'm going to zigzag this section. Sorry, kind of short for this mannequin. Okay, I'm gonna zigzag this section. There we go. Oh my gosh, the parting is so strong. She's fighting me. There, clipped it. Okay, so this is the part that I'm going to use as my low light. I hope I'm not missing any questions in the chat. I keep looking over there. But I know my coworkers are in there, so if there are any questions, I'm sure they're gonna help answer them. All right, and then there's this last piece. You kind of have a bit of like a triangular piece. Here, I'm gonna show you guys like this. So I'm just gonna comb her so that I have more control over her here. I'm gonna take my paint, and again, always unload in those mids there, get rid of most of your product, and you have better chance of having a softer blend. And then we're gonna sweep that product up into the root there. So unload and sweep up. Okay. Then when she's nice and unloaded, she's nice and saturated here, we're gonna grab our paddle and we're going to saturate both sides. Okay, so that's it. It's really just 3 sections because it's the back, the side, and the top, and that keeps it really easy and really quick. So I hope you, oh, love this. Awesome. I hope you guys can see how fast this sectioning pattern would be. In this case, what is the reason you chose 10 volume with Illumina over Pastel Developer 1.9? I chose 10 vol over Pastel because I wanted to mix my color 1-to-1. I didn't want to mix it 1-to-2. I feel like I have a bit more control over applying it in the situation when it is a mixing ratio of 1-to-1 versus 1-to-2. Personal preference. Also, I don't know. I felt like 10 volume was the right choice. But yeah, for me, it's mostly maybe the consistency. You could do it with pastel. Great technique. Okay, awesome. Yes, I love this technique. I love this sectioning pattern because it's really quick, really easy. It's a really great guide on where to start, especially if you guys don't know where to start with your painting techniques. So I'm going to show you guys the end result. Put her aside here. All right. Thanks for answering. No worries. If you have any more questions, make sure to throw them in. I'm still going to be on for a few more minutes. I hope that answered your question well. Okay, so this is my finished mannequin. I did that exact technique on her. So I used Blonde D'Or Free Lights and 40 volume, and I went through every section that I left out, and I used the 8-stroke 05 as my low light just because I wanted to give her more dimension and just a bit more of like a warmer blend to it too. And then I toned her with 9-stroke 59, which is one of our new Illumina shades. If you guys haven't used them yet, make sure to give it a try. I love the 9-stroke 59 because it is a beautiful, soft blush tone, and I'm all about the blush tones. And yeah, it's super shiny, which is what I love about Illumina. It has amazing shine to the hair. And yeah, I found this technique really quick and really easy. Even the first time doing it, the sections just really take out those big parts of the hair, and it just makes it go a lot quicker. So that's my finished mannequin. You guys could always like root melt her if you wanted to. I decided not to root melt her. I just decided to tone her. I feel like a root melt wasn't completely necessary because with Blonde D'Or Free Lights, your look is so diffused already, especially if you are gonna go in there and if you are gonna back comb it, it's gonna be such a diffused, seamless look as it is. Yeah, so that's my mannequin. I hope you guys liked this technique. Give it a try on your next paints. It's just so fast and so easy. So you can't go wrong. I just tripped over the mannequin stand. And that's it. Hope you guys liked it. Thank you so much for joining today. My name's Zeina. You can find me on Instagram at ZHairWarrior. And have a great day. See you guys next time. Bye.